Welcome into another edition of the Future Sox podcast. My name is Elijah Evans, joined by my co-host Dylan Barnas. We're back with some actual baseball to talk about. And yes, it's spring training, so don't get too excited. Don't overreact. I know everybody loves to, and we might do some of that today because it's fun. But at the end of the day, it is spring training. With that said, we've got 5 games under our belt. The White Sox are 4-1 to start the Cactus League. I leave in about 11 hours at 5 a.m. my time tomorrow for Arizona. So super excited to get out there. Really pumped to get some eyes on guys in person. Have a lot of good conversations. Hopefully have a ton of content coming out on the Future Stock side of things. But yeah, we're off and rolling. We've got spring training. We got some good data to talk about, and we're going to get after it today. Dylan, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. I'm just glad to see baseball back in action. After the offseason, spring training just feels like it's a completely new year. Yeah, you had New Year's in January when the calendar officially turned to 2026, but now once baseball is being played, it feels like a new year. And we're gonna overreact. I know I'm overreacting to Brooks Baldwin hitting, what is it, like 550 through I think it's like 11 plate appearances. So clearly he's going to sustain that through the entire regular season and win MVP. I'm just being rational, but it's been fun to watch the White Sox actually like winning games. The 4-1, spring training record doesn't really mean anything, but last year they were tied for the worst record in the Cactus League at 11-19. Granted, the other team that was 11-19 was the Mariners, and then you look at the season that they had. But again, just winning games. I mean, this group of players hasn't done much winning together as a team. Obviously the current group hasn't played any real game together yet, but like the holdovers from last year, like the rookies from last year. Yeah, it was a good second half of the year, but they really haven't done like a consistent stretch of time where they're going out and playing above 500 baseball. So if that is what spring training is, and the White Sox end up winning the Cactus League, I'm perfectly fine by that.
Yeah, we like having a good time. It's always fun to enjoy some winning baseball, and I think just the vibes are high. I'm really curious to see how it is out there when I'm out there, just kind of sensing the energy, seeing where things are at. I feel like the energy is just good, and the at bats have been really good, man. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. I know we talked about earlier, like leading the Cactus League in like multiple key offensive statistics so far. Obviously, it's early. You've got a lot of pitchers that are not fully into their groove yet, but like the at bats have just been good. I think the approach has been good. You even today, like it was a long game. I didn't watch all of it. I
Yeah.
was in and out of meetings and stuff throughout the day, but then like it was one of those games where it's just like they were grinding at bats, man. There was a lot of at bats you're going through, and you're seeing a team that just is battling and putting it, all out there in terms of what they're doing at the plate. And I think that's a really good sign from a young team to be fighting the way they are. Obviously, there's been some standouts so far. You made an awesome list here of MLB guys and prospects. Just to kind of go through of what we've seen so far. It started with a bang on the first day of the first game against the Cubs. I don't care if it's spring training. I don't care if it's the middle of the winter. I love beating the Cubs. I think
Yeah.
everybody in the organization does. So that was a great way to start the spring, and then rolling into some good games against some good teams and some talented prospects, especially that the White Sox were able to get the wins against. Before we get fully into that side of things, I do want to touch on a couple brief topics. One being the World Baseball Classic. We are T minus 9 days from the WBC kicking off, and obviously we've got some White Sox involved: Kyle Teal, Sam Antonacci, Murakami, Sir Anthony Dominguez. There's a variety of guys heading over to the WBC from the White Sox org. Today comes out the whole thing with Tarek Skubal pitching in the WBC, but he's going to make one start only, likely in pool play, and then he's going back to camp to be with the Tigers. I wish I could say I was surprised. I'm not. What's kind of your overall thoughts on just the pitching during this tournament? Because it's really hard to create a definitive opinion for me, because I go back and forth from both sides of like what the pitching looks like during this tournament.
I mean, it makes sense. Like Tarek Skubal is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and he's probably going to get one of the biggest paydays we've ever seen for a pitcher. So it makes sense why he and Scott Boras would want to just be like, all right, you're going to throw one game to say that you did, and then you're going to go back and just continue to ramp up for the season. But at the same time, like it's a pool play game against Great Britain. Like we're gonna use the USA's best pitcher on Great Britain. Really? Like it just seems like kind of counterintuitive for school to be even on the team at that point because I feel like you could get by Great Britain with throwing, a lesser arm. And that's not I'm not like disrespecting anybody else, but like Eric Skubal can be used on a better caliber team than Great Britain. But I think that the pitching staff as a whole is going to be a lot of fun to watch, especially after last WBC, where you had like guys like Lance Lynn and Nick Martinez and Adam Wainwright throwing, and like that was the rotation. So I think when you can piece together a rotation of Joe Ryan actually is hurt, but like Skeens, Webb, McLean, like
Yeah.
all those guys they're going to be able to hold their own. I'm fully confident in that. But at the same time, like really, we're going to use Scooble for one game and then just ship him back.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I think it's like maybe they just need to get their 300-year-old anger out on Great Britain and just
Yeah,
pummel them for one game, drop a little 20-0 on the Brits, and just make them know who's boss in the baseball world.
yeah,
Maybe that's part of it. I don't know what the deal is, but I think it's interesting that it's a tricky line to toe because you don't want to work your pitchers too hard, and you also want to have guys that are bought in and want to be there and want to win this tournament. And so we put something up on JB, obviously thanks to our friends at BetMGM, about some of the odds, and like the US being an odds-on favorite to me
yeah,
is a little drastic. I
yeah,
I think that's a little much. I have a hard time seeing how this team is favorited over the field, given that they've won once, and given that Japan is really freaking good, and the
yeah,
Dominican Republic and Venezuela are also very, very good teams with entire MLB rosters, essentially, right? So
yeah.
I don't know, man. I think obviously hoping the best for Team USA, but I'm curious, and I kind of do. I see a world where the U.S. has another disappointing year, and I hope that's not the case. But it is, your Corbin Carroll's out now. Not to say Roman
Yep.
Anthony's not amazing, but you're missing, a top 5 outfielder in the game. You now only get Tarek Skubal for the pool play when it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't be shocked to see a handful of other pitchers minimize, or I don't know. I'm
Well, I
curious
mean,
to
you're
see the
missing
taxi
you're
squad.
missing
Yeah,
Joe
go ahead.
Ryan too. You're missing
Is
Joe
he
Ryan
officially
too.
out though? I wasn't sure if he was
I
officially out.
I think that they were sending him to get like MRIs or something, and it's an oblique, so like that could
Yeah, that could
mess some
derail.
things up.
So, and for reference, it's a bunch of relievers on the
Yeah.
somebody Adrian asked was on the taxi squad. The reserve squad is Tim Hill, friend of the White Sox
Ooh.
organization. Shout out Tim Hill. I guess he's good now. I was crazy.
Yeah.
Tim Hill, Jeff
Sure.
Hoffman, Tyler Rogers, Matt Strom, and Will Vest. So a lot of really nasty relievers actually in
Yeah.
that group. But ultimately, relievers who at this time of year are not going to be throwing more than an inning, maybe 2 innings. So they're starting wise, like you're going to be relying on Clay Holmes and Nolan McLean, which is they're great pitchers. Like Nolan McLean could be one of the best pitchers in this tournament by the end of the year easily. So there's a lot still on the table for Team USA. I find the whole situation very fascinating, and I think figuring out how to get pitchers to actually want to throw a lot of innings, you're never going to get guys to throw a lot of innings in this tournament. Part of me thinks you should try to get like 10 starters who can all just throw 3 4 innings a game, even if you have to go
Yep.
2 starters in a single game. I actually think that might be the better way because you've got hypothetically up only 8 games to play, right? It's 5 or no 7. It's 4 pool
Yeah.
play games, a day or two off, and then a quarterfinal, a day off, a semifinal, a day off, and a championship. Generally speaking, it's not exactly like that. 7 games, like if you get 10 starters, you can just piggyback starters and then have a couple
Yeah.
really couple big relievers. Like I think they almost should have gotten even more starters to pitch for this team, even if they're only committed to throwing max of 4 innings in a given game. I don't know.
And even then, like, you're still going to be able to find good MLB pitcher or
Right,
good
for
USA
sure.
pitchers, like guys like Jacob DeGrom or like I think isn't
No
Kershaw on the
chance to Grom
roster?
would, yeah, but Kershaw is on the roster. We'll see. I
Yeah,
think we're gonna get like a little Kershaw single inning appearance against Brazil. Retired Kershaw with his dad bod. Like, who knows, man? It's gonna
sure.
be a really fun tournament. I can't wait. Regardless, I'm excited. But I am fascinated by the dynamics of just like what this all looks like, and
Yeah.
just the pitching layer to it because it is going to be interesting. I don't know who's going to. We really won't know who's actually going to throw significant innings till we get to the tournament. Like, there's a whole world where any of these pitchers could just back out or say, "Oh, I'm only throwing one start anytime in the next week and a half." Right?
Yeah, and Japan is actually the team that I'm, like, looking at and just wondering, like, what's gonna happen there because their defensive alignment, at least what's been, like, reported, it's weird. Like they've got like, at least what they've said publicly is like Seiya
Yeah.
Suzuki is going to play center field, and that's why he was out there against the White Sox on Saturday. And then like Munetaka Murakami is going to be playing third, but Kazuma Okamoto is going to be playing first. I feel like those two should be
You don't think they're
flipped.
going to flip him? I think they're going to
I
flip him.
I think they could, but
Interesting.
like that's what they
I
wanted
mean,
them to work
Okamoto's
on. I
playing
mean,
third for
exactly
the Blue
for
Jays,
the Blue
and
Jays. Yeah,
Murakami's playing first for the Sox, obviously. So
I don't
it's
know.
an interesting thing. I'm pumped though. I think Murakami, I'm hoping, has a huge tournament. That would be
Yeah,
sick. And then Team Italy is going to be definitely a rooting favorite for some White Sox fans. For White Sox fans looking to tap into a couple games there, Kyle Steele and Sam Antonacci both actually playing meaningful games for Italy is going to be pretty sick. I
that would
think
be pretty
Antonacci.
sick.
There is a couple veterans that might get time over Antonacci, but I look at that infield and I think Antonacci should and will get actually a pretty decent amount of
Yeah,
playing time for them. And especially if he gets to throw, I mean, that'd be so cool to see Antonacci going up against Skeens or Logan Webb
Ski.
in the
I
first
think
round
it's
or
I think
whatever it might
it's
be. It
one
might
of
be. I
those
think it
two.
probably will be. Yeah, it should be
It's
one
one
of
of
those two
those
because
two. Yeah.
you'd think those two are getting the Mexico and the Italy starts in pool
Hmm.
play. So you're going to see Sam Antonacci potentially go up against a superstar pitcher one way or another. So it would be pretty fun to see, and I think we're going to have a really good time watching that whole tournament, regardless of all the pitching complications.
Yeah, I just hope that one White Sox player in the WBC has like a cool moment that you
Yeah,
can look
that'd be
back and
awesome.
say like, all right, yeah, Sam Antonacci hit a homer off of
Right.
Paul Skeens, and you know USA is probably gonna beat the crap out of Italy, but like it'll be
I
pretty
don't know,
pretty
man.
cool.
Italy's pretty fun, man. I don't know. Give me Aaron Nola against the U.S. with a decent lineup. It's not impossible. You never know. Never say never.
It's not
Remember the Nether
impossible,
Remember the
but
Netherlands beat the Dominican Republic a handful of tournaments ago. So you never know.
yeah, but
Um,
yeah,
we'll see
still,
what happens. The other tiny thing I want to make a note of here. I don't know if anybody has not seen this yet, but if you haven't, you should probably go check out what Connor Griffin did today. Holy cow, man!
oof.
I'm not sure I'm ever gonna get over the 2024 draft. And I completely think that Hagen Smith can still be a very good pitcher in the major leagues. Just knowing the fact that there was significant consideration to Connor Griffin with the fifth overall pick, it hurts the soul a little bit. It definitely hurts the soul a little bit. This guy is going to be, he's a freak, man. There's a world where he is one of the best players in Major League Baseball, like pretty soon, and he's 19 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, at least for me. I feel like I haven't gotten to the age where, superstar MLB players should be younger than me.
Yeah,
But,
right.
like Connor Griffin is literally 2 full years younger than me, which is just
You're washed, kid.
yeah, I really am. Unless I can go out tomorrow and hit a ball 441 feet at 111.1 and just slightly edge him out. But like, yeah, no, Connor Griffin is going to be really good for a pretty long time. But you just wonder, what the future of the White Sox would look like if they took Griffin, JJ Weatherholt. Like both of those two guys are top 10 prospects right now. And again, I think Hagen Smith could still be pretty good. But both of those guys look like they're going to be top 5 players at their respective
Yep.
positions pretty early on into their MLB career.
Yep, it's pretty nuts. He's pretty phenomenal. Connor Griffin is crazy.
Yeah.
That second homer today that literally just broke
Yeah.
fucking TrackMan. Like, what in the world?
Yeah.
That was nuts. That just broke. That literally just broke Statcast. There, it
Yeah.
showed that he hit a 60-mile-an-hour EV for like 20 minutes until they readjusted it, and it was like, oh yeah, it was a 111 440 out of the stadium. Pretty nuts. So that
Yeah.
guy's a freak. But there's a lot of fun prospects in this system. There's a lot of fun players. Let's get back to some White Sox stuff. Appreciate the little tangent there for everybody that's tuning in. We just, it's baseball season. It's fun to talk about
Yeah.
things all across the league. So, getting into the White Sox stuff, though, you got a whole list of names just to hit on here. Starting with the MLB side, then we'll get into some of the prospects. There's been a lot of really good performances here at the onset of spring training. Who do you want to start with on the MLB roster side of things?
I feel like you got to start with Munetaka Murakami. I mean, he's the big ticket free agent, and he's only going to appear in I think one more game in spring training before he heads out to
Oh wow, is
WBC.
it only one more? Because I guess he leaves Sunday, so I'm hoping I get there tomorrow. So I'm hoping I catch
Yeah,
at least one or two maybe games of him because I assume if
because
he
I
leaves
know I know
Sunday,
he's only playing 5, and I can't remember if he played
he's only
in.
been in three so far, so he's got two more
Okay,
then.
so then yeah,
He's
he's
got
got
two
two
more
more.
then.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
which is good. I think he's probably got either tomorrow or probably tomorrow and Friday or something
yeah,
like that before he leaves Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, in those 3 games, 4 for 10 with 2 doubles, and, he's scorching the ball all over the field, but, he does have 4 Ks in those 10 at bats, which, again, you knew that this was gonna happen for Murakami. Like, it's stupid power, and with that comes a little bit of, or a lot of bit of swing and miss. So, again, I think that spring training is just a time for him to get adjusted and, acclimated to MLB pitching, and you're not really looking for spring training results. Like, you're just kinda looking for just going through the motions and getting swing tweaks worked out. And I feel like, from what I've seen, I feel like he's holding his hands a little bit closer to his body on his like initial setup, and then they're not like coming out over the plate more as he's loading. I could be wrong by that. It could just be
Yeah.
the camera angle, but for me, it feels like his hands are a little bit more like tight to his body, and he's getting through the zone a bit quicker. But again, that could just be camera angle and me trying to
Yeah.
overanalyze.
I'm very curious with Murakami. He looks good to me. I mean,
Yeah,
you're seeing some of the EVs pop. I mean, he looks comfortable. It seems like he's getting in his groove. It's just like the whiff's gonna be there. Like I don't really know
yeah,
how to like how else to put it that way other than like the whiff. It, I know people want to see like this big reduction in how much he ends up whiffing and how much the strikeout rate is, but like he's going to whiff, like that is going to happen. And it's not a slight on him. It's just the archetype of a player he is. Like, and I don't think I think the White Sox. I'm hoping honestly that there isn't this huge like, oh, don't whiff, don't whiff.
yeah.
It's okay for him to be his profile. It just he has to maximize the other aspects of his game, knowing that he's going to be a guy who does whiff at a pretty high rate. So I've been encouraged so far. I mean, 108.3 on the first game of spring training. Like, I'm not going to be mad about that. It was a liner. We haven't seen him really get under one yet and elevate yet. So maybe in the next 2 days we'll see one of those, and maybe it doesn't happen until after the WBC, and that's fine. It is a little tricky that he's not really getting a full camp his first year with the team. That makes a little bit of a weird situation where I wouldn't be shocked to see him start a little bit slow out of the gate come March 26th and beyond an opening day. But like I think there's still reason for him to be really excited about him, and there's reason for Sox fans to be fired up about what they can get from him here this season.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be, I don't wanna say it's gonna be gradual where, it starts off slow, and then, by August, it's gonna
Yeah,
be, he's hitting
right.
12, 15 homers a month. But like, there's going to be stretches where Murakami doesn't look great, and then again, there's going to be stretches where he looks like one of the 4 best players on the planet.
Yeah.
And
No, exactly.
there's going to be times where he goes out and hits 7 homers in a week. But again, I think the White Sox just need to let him be him and just lean
No
into the
doubt.
power, lean into, like, again, there's going to be whiffs, but if he can just be just a giant bopping bat in the middle of the lineup, I think him and Colson Montgomery are going to have just a lot of fun just terrorizing
Yeah,
pitchers this year.
definitely. We were going to get to this guy in a little bit, but we got a super chat here. Want to answer from Enrique. Appreciate the support of us always, you guys, everybody, even just liking the
Yep.
stream. Thank you to everybody who tunes in and checks in with what we're doing. We appreciate you guys giving us an outlet to talk about the White Sox and the prospect side of things. Enrique asked, "Do you think Will Venable will mess up the lineup dilemma with Teal and Caro?" And that brings us to Edgar Caro, who has looked great. A
Right.
couple games in here for Edgar Caro. Only a few games so far, 2 games to his name, but 4 hits already, 4 for 6 up for Caro. Again today, and the broadcast today was driving me crazy. I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
watched, but Cuero, oh my God, Edgar
Eesh.
Caro, Caro. For
It's
everybody
not
that needs
really
to
that
know,
hard.
Edgar Caro, Caro. Anyways, side tangent there, but Caro has looked really good out of the gate here. I think I still am very in on the Edgar Caro taking a step forward, and I don't really think Will Venable is going to mess this up. To answer your question, there, I really do believe that Kyle Teal and Edgar Caro are both going to get 5 days a week of playing, even if that's probably I think Kyle Teal will play almost every day, and you're still going to get 4+ days a week from Edgar Caro. I really do. I don't think there's anybody on this roster that justifies not giving Carroll playing time. The situation I can see digging into his playing time a little bit is the quad outfielders situation where if Benintendi does end up being, DHing 2 to 3 days a week, that does cut into Carroll's playing time potentially. But Carroll's going to start every single day against a lefty. So that's guaranteed on average 2 starts a week, right? He's going to start against every single lefty. The guy mashes lefties. He always has. He's going to get that time, but he may not end up getting a decent amount of starts against righties. I still see a world where if he's starting 2 days a week against a lefty, he gets at least 1 to 2 starts against a righty still in that
Right.
DH or catching in replace of Kyle Teal. So I think the team has a plan, and I hope the plan is still getting Caro in that lineup 4 days a week at least.
Yeah, I think that the only really like snag on Carroll getting that 4 days in the lineup is Andrew Benintendi. I think he's sort of like I don't want to say the crux of a lot of the White Sox lineup struggles right now,
You
but
can
like
you can say it.
yeah, he kind of is. Like you can't really put him in left field. You can't DH him without taking at bats away from one or both of your young catchers who you want to develop, and you gave up assets for acquiring both of them. But Benintendi, I really just don't know what the White Sox have planned for him. You brought in
Yeah.
two maybe three outfielders if Jared Kelenic makes the team that can play left field. You got Austin Hayes, Luis Angel Acuna, Brooks Baldwin is probably in the center field mix, and he can easily slide over to left field. So it's just weird because if Benintendi does need days off his feet, which he will, he's an aging outfielder who is, I want to say, he is the old. I want to say he's the oldest hitter on the White Sox. I think Austin Hayes might
I think
be.
Benintendi has him edged out, has his edged
Yeah,
out there.
but again, like those two guys, him, Benintendi, and Hayes, I think both of them are probably going to get one, maybe a couple days a week at DH. So then you're looking at 2, maybe 3 days off for Caro, and then it's just tough. But I think that once we get closer to the season, and the minor league guys are sent back down to minor league camp, and you have around what your 26-man roster will be for opening day, I think that's when you get a better sense of what Venable wants to do, because we're 5 games in. We're making assumptions right here, but like when it comes to like actual assumptions, I think you can delay them at least a little bit towards the season. I mean, we're still a month away. Like there's a lot of spring training baseball
Yeah.
left to be played, and maybe one of them has a crazy spring and forces one over the other in terms of like catching every day. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I don't think that Venable is going to mess it up.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think we're gonna get enough at bats from Caro, and Teal's not the issue. I think Caro's the one where we could see him get slighted a little bit on playing time. And there's been some things, some ups and downs. I still think he needs to show himself as a more consistent, productive hitter that's able to elevate the ball a little bit more. The bat speed is something he's clearly working on this offseason and needs to continue to work on. But I think that those guys, there's room for both those guys in the lineup, and I hope that it will amount to them both getting significant playing time. I mean, I'd love to see a world where they both play 100+ games this season. I think that's the optimal scenario for this organization, honestly.
Yeah, and even if it is sort of like a 170 or not 170, 110 to like 90, 95, like I think that's probably a more, I don't want to say like modern approach to catching, but like unless your name is Cal Raleigh or Will Smith or maybe like Alejandro Kirk or William Contreras, like you're probably not catching 130, 140 plus games a
Sure.
season. So, I think that the White Sox know that, and I think that they've invested assets into having two really good young catchers that they hope can develop and be the future catching tandem of a competitive White Sox team. And that's what we're all hoping for. But if one of them stands out head and shoulders above the other, I think that they'll move off of whoever when it comes time to. But I don't think that we're anywhere near that discussion yet, because
Yeah.
both of them didn't even play a full season last year. I think that you just let it ride for all of 26, and then make an assumption or make a decision in maybe next year, maybe it's the winter after. But again, we're nowhere near the discussions of like, oh, is one tradable for a bat or a bullpen arm, whoever. Like it's we're not there yet.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. That sounds good to me. Where do you want to go next? Who's some of the next guys up on the major league side of things?
I mean, I feel like we talked about Murakami, so talk about another offseason acquisition of Luis Angel Acuna. I feel like I don't want to say look good in like, I think it's his only game so far, but his
Put in
issue
two,
has
I
been,
believe.
I think it was the game against the Brewers. I could be wrong
Yeah,
there, but regardless, his issue when he was with the Mets was a lot of his hard contact was on the ground, and that's why he wasn't really able to use his power, because for a shorter guy, he creates a lot of decent exit velos, and but when they're going straight into the ground, the shortstop or third baseman is probably going to get a glove on it and throw you out at first, no matter how fast he is. But in the game against the Brewers or the A's, it was one of the games at Camelback. I remember that. But he elevated the ball twice, and it was hard contact. I think both balls were above 95 miles an hour exit velo. I think both got caught, or one was a double or something. Um, but I think that if he can just consistently elevate the ball, I think the White Sox may have found something there. Again, it's only two batted balls, and I don't want to rush to conclusions over two batted balls, but I think that his swing does look a lot better for generating loft and backspinning the ball. But again, it's two batted balls. I'm not going to say that they fixed Luis Angel Acuna, but at the same time, it is nice to see him elevating two balls before he puts one on the ground.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That is a good point. He struck out his first at bat and then two elevated balls for sure, like you said. If you're curious, his line out that was 346 feet would have been a home run at Tropicana Field and only Tropicana Field. Fun
Yeah,
fact. Not that anybody was worried about that one in spring training, but yeah, I'm with you. I think Acuna, I'm excited to see more from him. I'm looking forward to kind of just getting to watch him even in some cage work this week because I think I'm curious to just see how he looks overall across the board. I mean, it's very clear to me that he's going to be playing center field more than anything else. I think that seems like the reality now with the way the roster is shaping up. So I am looking forward to seeing him not only play more center field, it sounds like he's comfortable in center field, but also just getting to see more bats and more swings from him to kind of look at what's going on there and what the adjustments he's made has been. I think he's a guy that we're going to be obviously watching pretty closely here, throughout the season.
yeah, and again, I think that if he can be a serviceable center fielder, I think he's going to be valuable for the White Sox. But if he ends up being that sort of super utility role, sort of in a Brooks Baldwin-esque type of player, I think that he can be valuable there too. But you gave up Luis Robert, and you hope that you got your center fielder of the future for your center fielder of the past. So, but again, I think that if Luis Angel Acuna can elevate the ball, I think he could be more productive at the plate than White Sox fans maybe gave him credit for, or Mets fans, really just the baseball world in general. But I think that if he can just elevate the ball consistently, there's going to be more doubles, more homers, and less hard groundouts or singles through the hole. And, for a guy of his size, him hitting 10, 15 homers in a year, that's pretty good for I want to say he's what, like 5'7", 5'8", something like that. That's
Right.
not bad power numbers.
No, definitely. I'm excited to see, and you hit on it. You kind of just led me into the next guy because I was going to skip over to Brooks Baldwin because you said it. He's off to a hot start, man. We talked about last week how I brought up the point that I don't think Brooks Baldwin necessarily has a spot locked on this roster, even after being with the big league team last year, because of just the options and the other outfielders that don't have options. Yeah, I don't know. He might not have liked that one, and I think honestly, that second game against the A's, 102 off the bat, 402 home run in that game. In spring training so far, Baldwin is 4 for 7 in his first 3 games, a homer, a double, no strikeouts to this point. Baldwin's just a good ball player. I think that the White Sox community in general got too low on him too quickly after his big league debut.
Yeah.
And I still am all for him being a very high end utility player. I don't think he's an everyday MLB starter in center field necessarily, but I do think he can be a very legit utility piece for this team this season and going forward potentially.
Yeah, I think that all of us sort of were expecting a little bit more out of Brooks Baldwin, just given the fact that he tore
Yeah.
up minor league baseball, and then it seemed like it went away like that once he got called up to the major leagues. But I think that I think he can be a sort of super utility guy, can play wherever he's needed, and if he's productive at the plate, that just makes it even better because the days of Leary Garcia posting like a 70 WRC plus, but he
Mhm.
plays all 9 positions, like it's valuable, but it comes at a cost of having a hole in your lineup at every third inning. So I think that if he can be sort of maybe like maybe 100 is a bit lofty. I'm not sure really like how his bat
Yeah.
profiles, but I think that if he can sort of hover around that league average mark, I think his speed and his defense, especially, I think his defense is going to improve as he gets more reps in the outfield. I think that he can be a 1 to 2 WAR player, and for a bench guy, that's pretty valuable.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think if he's a 1.5 WAR utility player off the bench, like I feel great about that going
Yeah.
forward. So I think there's a very real chance of that, and I think he's looked great out of the spring. Even just the EVs have been good. The swing just looks steady. He looks like he's confident in the box. So I think a confident Brooks Baldwin, earning a spot on this roster will be a good recipe for him going forward this season.
Yeah, and then another outfielder that is fighting for a roster spot, just like Baldwin, is Jared Kelenic. I don't have the exit velocities above or in front of me right now. You might be able to pull him up quicker than I can, but I feel like he's impacting the ball harder than I expected. I didn't realize that he was consistently pumping out like 106, 108s. He hit one. It was like 108.2. I could be wrong there, but I was not aware that he still had that sort of power in the tank. He's always been at sort of like whiff guy who can hit a couple homers here and there, but I feel like him hitting consistently above 100-mile-an-hour exit velos, I feel like that's a good sign for him to make the team as that sort of fourth, maybe fifth outfielder that can fill in against righties in a platoon role. But again, I've been kind of pleasantly surprised by how hard Jared Kelenic has been hitting the ball.
Yeah, Kelnick, it was a 107.4, a
Okay.
single in that Rockies game. Also the same game that Zach Fiend hit a
Ooh,
113, 468 walk-off. Holy cow.
yeah.
Zach Fiend, good for him, man. That's a crazy story. He's been through some
Yeah.
stuff on a
Yeah.
personal level, and him being back in good shape and looking huge is awesome.
Yeah.
But a tangent there. I agree, Kelnick. I mean, it's not, we talked about it last week, and if you listened to the show last week, you know this. Like, Kelnick doesn't have an easy path to a roster spot. It's
Right.
definitely going to be a challenging situation for him to crack the roster on opening day. In which case, like, he's got to come out and show it this spring. And it sounds like he's very confident. He feels good, and he's in a good spot with his body, of course, which is great. But he's also got to have some results. So I'm interested to see kind of what keeps going with him and how it progresses. But it's encouraging nonetheless to see him having a couple games so far where he's looked good to go and looked like a little bit better version of himself.
Yeah, I don't know if you listened to the podcast he did with Chuck Garfien, but like he just sort of was talking about like how him being that sort of highly touted prospect and then struggling, how it just did a number on him mentally, and now he's sort of got to like work his way back, and now he's got sort of like an underdog mindset, and I feel like if he's got that, there's a reason why he was a top 10 prospect in the game, and was a first round draft pick, and I'm not going to say that like I have high hopes for Jared Kalnick, but like if he can just rebound and become like even 80% of what's like of what I want to say what he was expected to be, because like 80% of a top 10 prospect is a really good player, but like just showing some semblance of the player he was when he was coming up through the minors, I feel like that's a win for the White Sox, because he has not looked great in his MLB time, and if you are able to just maybe squeeze out 10 home runs from him. I don't know even how realistic 10 is, just given the fact that he's probably not going to make the opening day roster, and then is going to be fighting an uphill battle with other outfielders like Braden Montgomery for an outfield role in for the White Sox. If you can squeeze out a handful of homers from Jared Kelenic, I feel like you call that a success.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. I think if he gets big league time this year and is at all decent, I mean that's a
That's fair,
successful
yeah.
minor. It's a minor league signing at the end of the day, right? So
A minor
I
league
think if
signing
you
that they
get
did a
any,
press conference for.
it's true. So there's got to be some interest there and
Yeah.
some excitement there for sure. But I am curious to see how it looks for him this season. Any other hitters in the big league roster that you kind of were pinpointing there?
I feel like that's about it. Kyle Teal hasn't had the greatest of starts.
Nothing
Chase
there from Taylor.
Mydroth Chase Mydroth, not really. Colson Montgomery, not really. Miguel Vargas, I feel like he hasn't been getting a lot of playing time. I could be wrong there,
It's
but I feel like
five at bats so far. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like
it's early. We're early, guys. I know we're talking
yeah,
about this stuff. It's very early for sure.
yeah, we're jumping
The
to
pitching
conclusions
side
off
is
five
where it's
plate
interesting though,
appearances.
because pitching side is a little interesting though, because you do get to see the debut of some other pitchers and just generally see where these guys are at. I, dude, I mean, I am a little. I think I'm even more bullish than I've ever been on him, and I tried to see if you'd trade me him in Dynasty this week because
Nope,
Grant Taylor is throwing fuzz. I mean, the dude came out just sitting 100 his first inning, but it's just gross. Like the guy, he just looks disgusting. I mean, he really looks phenomenally good. We heard this week that he is throwing a little bit more of a two seam to play off more of the four seam. I didn't really think he threw it in this outing. I don't know if you noticed it. I don't think he threw
he
it.
did, he did,
Throw
yeah,
one.
he threw a couple. If you look at
They
his
got
like
tagged as four seams, which is
yeah,
interesting.
if you look at his like
Stat
metric,
report.
like
Yeah.
if you look at his plots, like pitch plots, his movement plot, it's like a little. I want to say it's like around 4 or 5 horizontal break, and
Interesting.
then it's
Yeah.
down. Yeah, it's down a couple inches of vert, which, you know, it's not a crazy difference between the fastball, but just his fastball is such an outlier that I feel like anything moving the other direction from it is going to throw hitters off balance. And, you know, if you can run even just a baby two seam in on a righty's hands and then, you know, jam him on a cutter, it's not even a cutter, but like his fastball just goes straight and then cuts at the very end. And it's such a just it's an outlier pitch,
It's
and
a weird pitch, man. And then you play it with
and his
those 2
breaking
breaking
balls,
balls. Oh
yeah,
my
it's
god.
unreal. And we haven't even
Pretty
seen
disgusting.
the changeup that he has. We haven't even seen that yet, which I feel like once that comes out, that is going to be a gnarly pitch to just look at metrically.
What's actually the craziest part about this from Grant Taylor is that his 2 highest velocity fastballs were the 2 seam.
Ooh, okay,
That is nuts. So that's now
okay,
a essentially a 100.5 mile an hour sinker. It's not quite a full sinker. I guess it's more of a two seam,
yeah.
but it's like a borderline sinker at over 100. He threw his top 2 pitches of that outing were 100.5. That was 14 inches of vert and 9 inches of horizontal break arm
It got
side.
up to
That's a
9.
two seam.
Ooh,
That's a two
ooh.
seam.
I did not
And
realize
then
it got up to 9.
the second fastest pitch of his outing was 100.3, 15 inches of vert, 9 inches of horizontal as well on that pitch.
That's a nasty pitch.
That's disgusting. And then
Yeah.
you pair it with the fact that it didn't even get tagged as a two seam too, but then you pair it with all the four seams that are all in that 17 to 19 vert range with essentially equal or even a tiny bit of cut or or equal horizontal. The guy's crazy. It's really, really good stuff. I am so curious to see how the usage of Grant Taylor is deployed this year because they've talked about multi-inning usage, allowing him to be the type of pitcher who can get some like innings under his belt to keep the door open for the ability to start in the future. I don't know what the answer is with him. It's really going to depend on this year. I'm all for giving him multi innings, but I also think he might just be a better closer than Sir Anthony Dominguez at times. Like, is that crazy for me to kind of like? I don't. Maybe it's a 4 out save situation. Maybe those are the situations he gets some saves. But like, I am very much not opposed to him getting some save opportunities over Dominguez this year, just because the stuff is really absurd.
I don't think that him. I don't think that he'll get 0 save opportunities. I think
Yeah.
Mike Vassell got like 5 or 6 last year, and I think that's
Well,
sort of
that
the
team was
role
never
that.
closer, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I think that that's sort of the role that they want Taylor to be in. You know, a guy who can come out and throw multi inning, high leverage opportunities, but also he can throw spot starts here and there. He can close out a back end of a game. He can be your setup man for Dominguez. I feel like Grant Taylor is going to start for the White Sox just because I, it's tough for me to actually say it, but like if they wanted him to be a closer, they wouldn't be saying that like, oh yeah, we're going to stretch him out and try and edge him
Yeah.
back into the rotation. I feel like you can't waste an arm like this just throwing in the 8th or ninth inning. He's was drafted as a starter, and everything about him just screams elite starter. And I just hope that the White Sox don't write him off right away. Like they're going to give
Yeah.
him a chance to throw more, but I just really hope they give him a full year of being a
Right.
starter and just letting it eat.
Yeah, and I want to go over a couple more metrics here. For people that don't know some of the pitch metrics we're talking about at all and some of the movement patterns, my DMs are always open, as are Dylan's. If you want
Yep.
to know anything about that stuff, feel free to reach out because I realize sometimes I say these things and I say them as if people might already know what I'm saying. And if you don't, do
Yeah.
not feel bad at all. And 100% reach out to me anytime for me to explain some of these things if you're ever interested in that stuff. His breaking balls, dude, he only threw 3 breaking balls. It was
3.
only an
Yeah.
inning of outing, obviously, but like the curveball is negative 13 to 15 vert and completely 0 horizontal. So I
The
mean,
crazy
it's
thing,
just a
the
bender, right?
the one with negative 15 vert actually had arm side movement.
It doesn't even make
It's like
sense.
it's like half an inch to the right of the 0 line, but it's literally like Trey Savage's like
Yeah,
slider
because
split.
it's up on top. It's coming up from a high
Yeah,
release point, and it's
and it's
that
just
crazy. It's a curveball, and it has that serious drop, but it just falls off the table. Then you get a slider that is, it's a 90 mile an hour slider.
it's
It's it's
It's a
not
unicorn
it is
pitch.
a slider. It's not a
It,
cutter, but it's this gyro slider, and it's negative. It's basically no vert and a little bit of cut. It doesn't really fit into a slider or a cutter, to be honest, right?
but the fact that it is 90 miles an hour, that's what makes it just such a unicorn pitch. Like there's I think I tweeted something
Right.
last year. Like literally when Grant Taylor was first throwing in a StatCast game, he threw a slider. It was like -2, -4. So like just a slight bit more drop. And it was like 90.4 miles an hour. And like the only two pitchers who had ever thrown that in like since 2020, it was like Logan Gilbert and Tyler Glasnow, who had thrown a slider with at 90 miles an hour with
Silly.
a similar shape. So it's just a really really good pitch, and I really hope that they can get it under command more. And I think that that's one of the things that he was working on this offseason, was to just have other offerings other than just, hey, here's the fastball, I'm gonna blow it by you, good luck. And if he can just harness those two breaking balls, which it's tough to do when both of them move as much as they do off
Right.
of the fastball, if he can just harness them a little bit, it's going to be so fun to watch.
Yeah, that's not even factoring the fact that he also has other offerings that he can mix in
Yeah,
if needed, and then now has a secondary fastball that can play off of two different fastball variations, because the fastball variation thing is becoming a thing. If you guys haven't noticed, like so many pitchers now throw multiple fastballs, and we'll hit on a couple
yeah,
other guys that do that too. So Taylor's gross. That's the only way I can put it, and I think that he has legitimate superstar closer or very good starting pitcher upside. And
yeah.
I think it's going to be fascinating to see what the plan is for him the next 2 to 3 years. And also, like, hate to be that guy, but like teams are going to come calling about Grant Taylor. And I don't think that he gets moved,
I
but
would
like
be stunned.
there's a universe where someone offers a Mason Miller type of package for Grant Taylor this season, and the White Sox have to at least consider the possibility at that point.
If
So
somebody wants to give up a top five prospect for Grant Taylor, I'm not saying I wouldn't say yes immediately, but like that's a very very tempting offer for a guy who I think I
yeah,
calculated his innings yesterday. I think he's still less than 120 innings removed from throwing off a high school mound, which is unreal. But
nuts.
I think that if somebody wants to give you a Leo DeVries type of player, I could be swayed into accepting that.
Yeah, there's something to consider there. A couple other pitchers just kind of worth noting, some slight tweaks. I would say, right, some things we've noticed. Jordan Leisure adding a sinker that he really hasn't thrown in the past. I'm curious with Leisure too, and this is a guy that I've definitely going to get a chance to talk to Jordan this week and kind of pick his brain on a little bit, because the fastball slider was working late in the year. With him, like, it sounds like he's finding that splitter a little bit more, and that he's going to be implementing it more. We didn't see it at all in his first outing though, but we did see this new sinker that is supposed to be kind of this differentiator off of the four seam. Similar velocity to the four seam. It was around 90. He only threw one, but it was 96 miles an hour, with about 15 vert, 11 break. It's a pretty good pitch metrically. I'm curious to see how much Leisure actually throws the sinker and splitter this season, because as much as those two pitches are very good, he does very clearly need a third pitch that can be utilized in his arsenal more often.
Yeah, and I think that his slider is more trusted than the splitter right now. He showed it last year, but I think the sinker is just something to move away from lefties. You've got the slider that moves away from righties, and the fastball I feel like can play pretty much anywhere on the top rail to any handedness of hitter. And if he just has something that doesn't come into a lefty and they can just golf it out of the park, I feel like that's what Leisure should do. And maybe it is a splitter, maybe it's that sinker, but it's tough to get out opposing handed hitters when you only have fastball slider. That's just the way it goes, unless one of them is like a super outlier pitch and the other is passable. So I feel
Yep.
like if he has a sinker, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I think that's probably pretty accurate with him. Sean Burke is another one, who displayed some differences actually. Burke's interesting because also added a sinker. It looks like he had a sinker that he'd thrown a couple times in the past, but in this first outing for Burke, he threw 36 pitches, four of which were tagged as a sinker. Sinker coming in at around basically the same velo as his four seam, 94 and a half with the sinker. But unlike his four seam, which has a ton of vert and not much movement horizontally, right? Burke's sinker comes in a couple inches less vertical, around 15, 12 inches of horizontal compared to only 4 with the four seam. So definitely a harder breaking fastball for Burke. Also, he's a guy that's tinkered with his slider a lot in the past, and you noted this to me earlier. Like the slider is looking more cuttery. Again, it's still kind of a tweener in a way where it doesn't have enough
Right.
vert to be a true cutter. It's more of that 5 and 5. So Burke, I think it's clear Burke knows his arsenal still has some adjusting to do. The four seam generally plays up when he locates it well. The curveball's always been his bread and butter in terms of a strikeout pitch. The slider had some success last year, but it also kind of bounced around what the pitch was, and then the
Right.
sinker now being implemented a little bit more. The Burke arsenal is going to be fun to keep an eye on, just because I do think there's still some more juice to squeeze in terms of the way that he maximizes his pitch usage.
Yeah, I think that the idea for him is just a shorter pitch that he can control better because I felt like
Yeah.
watching him at times last year, it felt like the slider was always the pitch that he would spike or it would spin out of his hand and it would get homered
Yep.
off of. So I think that if he can just shorten it up, stay behind it a little bit more and get at least a little bit of movement off of the fastball, but then also be able to command that big hook that he throws, that's probably going to be the best outcome. And the sinker, I feel like he threw a little bit later on in the year. I'm not sure on like the usage over like month by month, but I feel like
Yeah.
he was throwing the sinker more later on in the year. And I think we talked about this like in like July or August that like if he can become that sort of like fastball sinker guy, like you were saying, multiple fastballs, I feel like that's the way that Burke becomes a true starting pitcher and like locks down his spot in the rotation.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Anything else on the MLB side? I know we got some fun prospects. We've already at 45 minutes here, but I know we want to get to some of these prospects.
I mean, we already knew Jordan Hicks threw hard, but his velo in his only
Yeah.
game so far is up from last year. I want to say it was up like around a mile an hour. I could be wrong on that, but
Yeah.
again, if he can get back to like his Cardinals days of velocity, or not even like fully Cardinals days where he was throwing 105, if he can just consistently be like 99 to 100, that's sick. That's awesome. So
Yeah. I mean, if it's this is a salary eater, right? Like
yeah,
if you're eating salary and you get a pretty decent mid relief arm and a guy throwing 99, 100, like I'm cool with that. His velo
right.
is up a ton. I mean, you look at from last year, right? His year average, he's up a mile, 1.3 miles an hour on the four
Oh,
seam, 1.2 on the sinker, and his sweeper is much harder at 3.7 higher right now in the four sweepers he threw this week than what he was throwing last year. So clearly made the adjustment to throw a harder, a little bit more aggressive sweeper.
is
It's
it the
definitely
same movement?
less. It's not really. It's definitely less movement. It's a little more verty and a little less horizontal.
Okay.
Going down from 12 horizontal down to 7. So it's really a short sweeper. It's almost kind of like a sweeper slider hybrid. Sweepers and sliders, it's a whole different conversation. They're the same pitch. It's just a different version
Well,
at the end of the day. I mean, no, they're not the same
no,
pitch.
but
Sorry.
yeah,
They were the same pitch. They were previously both
yes,
considered to be a slider. They're different versions of a slider now, and it is a different pitch, but like his sweeper is really not a true sweeper. I mean, seven horizontal on a sweeper is not what you typically see as a sweeper. It's
right.
a lot shorter of a sweeper, but it still has kind of that vertical movement of a sweeper.
Yeah, and I think that his like sinker sweeper combo is gonna be his bread and butter this year. You know, the
Yeah.
fastball it essentially is a sinker. Like I'm not sure what the movement profiles
Yeah.
are on it, but like
Similar.
the sinker it'll break bats. Like I would be shocked if Jordan Hicks isn't if he doesn't break 10 plus bats this year.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Prospects. We know where to start. Everybody that listens to the show knows where
Yeah.
we're starting. First game of spring training, we got a Sam Antonacci 109.5 off the bat, 417-foot homer with a bat flip.
With a
That
sick
was dope.
bat flip.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen a first game of spring training bat flip like that. That was
It was awesome.
definitely the Sam Antonacci energy that I need on this White Sox team this year. Honestly, I think it shows the type of person he is and the player he is. He's a very mild mannered guy, and when he's on the field, you see that fire come out, and the fire came out literally the first game of spring training. Goes way deep off Jamison Tyon and bat flips, and it was sick. And he did he enjoyed the moment, and honestly, I mean that's the hardest hit home run of his career by I think
It's hard
three
to
and a half
ball.
miles an hour. His previous max EV home run was around 106, I believe. And that was in the Arizona Fall League,
Yeah.
109.5. So Antonacci, like the if the power is up a little higher like that going into the year, there's not much that's going to stop this guy from everyday innings fairly soon in Chicago. And he just looks good, even in this past game like today. And he played today, he played a few days ago. I mean, he's 2 for 7, sure, but it's a home run, 2 walks, no strikeouts, 2 stolen bases. He was wreaking
Yeah.
havoc on bases in that game as well. He's just showing what we've been talking about all offseason. And that homer was dope. So that was fun.
Yeah, I went back and looked at my draft notes for him when like I have like data for all of the college players. His max exit velocity in college with metal bats was 104.8, and he popped a 109.5 with wood. So Sam Antonacci got a lot stronger over the offseason. I think that
Clearly.
you look at just pictures of him from the end of last season to today. He looks a lot thicker. Like he looks like he's filled out, and I think that if he can just, I was struggling to find like a proper like power output numbers, but like if he can be sort of like a 10 homer a year guy, I think that you take that, especially given his on base and speed skills. If he can crank 10, 15 homers, that's an elite player. And maybe not elite, but like for a second baseman, that's pretty good.
No, he's shown the ability to be an average or better, above average MLB second baseman at this point. If you get more power tapped into and you see some of those swings start to come through like that one, obviously it's one swing, whatever. But like I didn't know he had 109.5 in him, honestly. So I
Nope.
think it's exciting. I think it's cool to see kind of what that looks like. The other guy from a metric standpoint that just immediately stood out, Tanner McDougal. Welcome to big league camp, my
Yeah.
friend. These are the two guys that the White Sox had at Sox Fest. We talked to them, we interviewed them. Definitely go check those interviews out. They were super fun to talk to. But like, there's a reason these two are getting a lot of shine in the White Sox community. And Tanner McDougal comes in relief in his first spring training outing, and this the third game of the season. I think it was the Brewers game. I mean, man, he's sitting 99 and a half, and
99.5.
it's moving. The fastball has a lot of ride on it, actually more than I think I even really thought it would be from the metric side of things. 13 vert, 11 horizontal, a lot of nice ride on that. It's interesting. It tags him as a sweeper for his, huh? He had 9 pitches tagged as a sweeper and one tagged
Yeah.
as a slider, which is fascinating because he's said his slider, it's just a slider that he manipulates in multiple different ways, kind of, and he's
Mhm.
able to make it bigger or smaller. So he has the slider that ranges from like 9 inches of movement one way down to only the one that was tagged as a slider was only 2 inches of horizontal with a little
Yeah.
bit more negative, a little bit more drop on it, a little more gyro-y. So he's got those variations, and then the curveball, obviously, only throw three
Banger.
of them, but that pitch is
It's
ridiculous.
stupid. That is,
Yeah.
it's literally like I don't know if anybody here. I feel like if you're on baseball Twitter, you know who TJ Stats is. He put out his like Stuff Plus or like grading scale, and I know that Elijah is not the biggest fan of Stuff Plus, but it
No, it's
graded
true.
out. It graded out as a 77 on the 20 to 80 scale. Just those three pitches, a 77. It's a ridiculous pitch, and especially just given how much separation it has from his fastball. Like one is coming in 99.5 top rail, and it's got you said it there, like more vert than I think both of us were expecting, and then you
Yeah.
break off a -13 curveball. That's pretty good. Like I think that him and Grant Taylor, like those two arms they've just been the talk of, or at least the talk of my head for the past three
The
days.
talk of my head. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
It's an interesting way of saying thinking about them.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. But he was great. Tanner McDougal came out and he shoved. He really did. I think I had a lot of people asking kind of why wouldn't he get a chance to make the opening day roster. You got to remember this is a guy who's had 1 year of minor league success, has
Right.
only pitched 50 innings at the Double A level, right? So he's only spent less than 3 months at the upper levels, and probably not winning Rookie of the
Service
Year.
time.
In which case, yeah, you keep him down past April 15th, and you're getting another year of control on Tanner McDougal. And I know the service time conversation is a whole different conversation. And I just made a video today on the Connor Griffin side of it. Like, it's a really interesting debate. Is time for a different, discussion for a different time. I don't see any reason to have Tanner McDougal up in April. I think that come May, he bumps somebody from the rotation if he has a good start to the year in the minors. And yeah, you're looking at Eric Fetty and Sean Burke. Like they gotta step up and they gotta throw well to maintain a rotation spot over Tanner McDougal with the way he looks right now.
Yeah, I think that you would be very hard pressed for just to find a more talented pitcher in the White Sox, or not even just in the White Sox organization, but like that's MLB ready right now. I feel like around the league, there's not as many guys who can match the sort of just raw stuff that Tanner McDougal has. Just it's a really good fastball. It's two really good breaking balls, and we didn't even see his changeup through the appearance that he made. You didn't see the changeup, and yeah, it's been a work in progress so far, especially after his Tommy John surgery. But like, if he comes back and flashes that, and it's even an average pitch, you're looking at least 3+ pitches, and then one that can be your sort of lefty, something to attack lefties with. So I'm really excited to watch Tanner McDougal throw off of a mound in Chicago this year. I'm not sure when it's going to be. I think that it's going to be sometime, you said it, like around May, but it wouldn't shock me if it's April 16th. Like, if he has a really good spring
Yeah.
and proves that he can carve up in AAA, AA, wherever he starts, it would not shock me to see him up in like 2 weeks after the service time deadline, if not quicker than that.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked at all. I think Eric Fedde is a $1.5 million signing. If he's in the
Yeah,
rotation, there's nothing stopping Tanner McDougal from pushing him out of the rotation unless Fedde is shoving for whatever reason, right? So
right.
there's possibility there. Um, Other prospects, William Bergoya is one I wanted to hit on quickly. I know we have a couple other guys written down and we can kind of speed through them, but Bergoya is someone that I have had a hard time understanding the perspective on him of some of the industry and just even the organization. But when you boil it down, like elite plate decisions, very, very good hit tool, and that's abundantly clear even in spring training, and it was last year already. But Bergoya has
Yeah.
4 for 6 to open the year, two doubles, no strikeouts, a stolen base. He just freaking I mean, he really just gets on base and he just hits and he's not going to whiff. And it seems like he's a guy that they feel confident can be a plus middle infielder defensively. And yeah, there's very limited power upside, but I can see, I can understand why a lot of people are super high on him, given just how advanced it seems the hit tool is for a guy that's very young still.
Yeah, he's sort of like the old archetype of middle infielder, where it's a really good hit tool, essentially zero power, can field pretty well,
Right.
and can swipe a handful of bases. Probably even more than a handful for Bergoya. But like, I've been really impressed with him so far. Like, he's been putting up great at bats and putting good wood on ball. Like, I think that I want to say his first double of the year, it was a liner in the gap that, like, I didn't think was gonna get to the wall or get to the fence, but it did, and he was chugging around second looking for three. So I'm not gonna say that, like, there's a world where he debuts in 2026, but like, it would not shock me. Like, I feel like um outside of like Caleb Bonnemer, I feel like he's kind of the I don't want to say like highest
Yeah.
rated middle infielder, but like, he might be the most pro ready of
No, you
any
might.
of any middle infielder.
I can definitely see it. I mean, that first game of the spring, two hard doubles and 103.1 off the bat, 101 100.7. That 100.7 went 325 feet and would have snuck out at a couple ballparks. So I mean, it's pretty interesting. I'm very curious to see kind of how he continues to look this season. I think he will get reps in Charlotte this year, if not,
Yeah.
at least to start the year, definitely at some point in the year. So he'll either start in Birmingham or maybe even Charlotte, and then from there, it's like he's going to get a good amount of time in AAA. And if you start to see the power tick up a little bit, like Bergoria is definitely a name to keep an eye on and somebody that has looked good out of the gate here already.
100%. Like, I don't think that, like, I want to say Jacob Gonzalez is like ahead of him, but like, he
I don't think
could
so.
be. I would be shocked if he is, but then I like Tanner Murray, maybe he's on the 40 man.
He's looked pretty
Yeah,
solid as well too. But
he
yeah,
he
no,
has like he
yeah,
has looked pretty solid. Yeah, he had a
you're
he
right
had a
though.
ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other quick hitters on the prospect side of things of names to mention here?
Zach Franklin, I still love you. That splitter is really good when it's on.
Splitter is good.
The fastball looked better today. He sort of lost command for it in his first outing, but he was on today. I think he got the save. It looked good. It was showing off that vert, and it's coming in essentially flat from a really low release point. So Zach Franklin, I'm in on him. Give him some innings out of the bullpen in Chicago, at least end of the year. Why not?
Yeah, I'm with that. I can see that one for sure. I think Franklin's a guy that could debut. A couple other just relievers. Jairo Iriarte. The slider looks a lot better. On the
Yeah.
positive note, Iriarte still Definitely command is lagging, and the fastball
Yeah.
still looks pretty but the slider looks a lot better. He adjusted his slider; it was up 3.5 miles an hour from last year's slider. Definitely getting a lot more vert, a little less horizontal, a little bit of a tighter slider, kind of in that gyro category, a little bit more cutter-ish, but not cuttery, but more of a gyro slider for Uriarte. And he looked, yeah, not great, but a little better. The slider at least looked better. And then Alexander Alberto, Rule 5 pick. It's been rough. It's
It's
been
good
really
stuff,
rough.
but he has no
It's
idea where it's going.
yeah, pretty all over command wise for Alberto. And even then, it was, the fastball was 97 and a half. So it was good, but it wasn't quite up. And I mean, it's early spring, but,
Yeah.
I was kind of expecting him to bump a couple hundreds as,
Yeah.
as we were getting going here. So not the best outings so far from Alberto. We haven't seen Jedickson Paez yet, who I'm
Mm-mm.
definitely looking forward to seeing in game because I think that's the one that's a lot harder of a guy to give back potentially from that Rule 5 draft. So I'm curious to see how that plays out with Paez. Yeah, that's about all I got. Braden Montgomery's gotten in a couple games, couple hard hit balls from him. We got to see Caleb Bonnemer for one at bat, two at bats, but
I
not
think it
much
was
there,
2.
obviously.
Yeah.
We'll get some other at bats, I'm sure, from some of the higher end prospects as the spring goes on. But obviously, the focus is more on the guys who are going to potentially make the team this year or later in the year.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like I want to say this week or maybe next week, you should start seeing like minor league guys head back to the minor league camp. And then,
Probably next
you're
week,
going to,
yeah.
yeah, like you're going to see guys like maybe like William Bergoya or Caleb Bonham starting to head back over to the backfields. And, then it's really like a battle for position spots because, then, you've got Jared Kelnick, Curtis Mead, Tanner Murray, like all those guys are going to be playing, maybe not every day, but like a consistent amount of playing time. And
Right.
also, Smith, Noah Schultz, David Sandlin should debut soon,
I
maybe.
believe we're going to see some outings from at least Smith and Schultz this weekend potentially. So we'll see
Okay.
what that looks like and when that comes. But I think we're going to get to see those guys pretty soon. It sounds like. So looking forward to obviously seeing some more pitching prospects. We'll have a lot going on. Definitely keep up. I got a lot of spring training content coming. We'll have some interviews out. I'm definitely going to post a variety of quotes and clips and everything like that. Going to try to talk to as many people as possible in a 3.5 day trip that I'm making before I head out for WBC stuff next week. So trying to squeeze it all in. We'll make it happen, but definitely stay tuned with Future Sox at Future Sox. I am at Elijah EV8 for Dylan at Not Cease. We will talk to you guys next week, but maybe sooner. I might decide we're gonna sneak in an episode this week when I'm out in Arizona. So we may have another little bonus episode towards the end of this week, and if not, we will talk to you next week on the roundup.
Thank you, guys.